I don't think an individual ever becomes a champion because there's so many people around him that has built him up or taught him or he's learned from or helps him win. So when you say a champion, it involves so many people. You say a championship, it involves even more people. So it's a very, very big word and hard to define.
Over the course of 7 championships, this 43 car became iconic, most for the driver behind the wheel, the king of NASCAR, Richard Petty. Now the 48 car, driven by Jimmie Johnson, has his own rule going on right now, and he could get an unprecedented 4th championship today. So from the king of NASCAR, we now go to the queen of NASCAR race day, and that's Wendy Venturini with today's Real Deal. Wendy?
Oh, so sweet, Johnny. Thank you. It is the last day of school. Now, when we get down to this final race today, a history can be made. You have Jimmie Johnson and Mark Martin. Jimmie Johnson, 34 years old, Mark Martin, 50. 8th full time in Cup, 22nd full year in the Sprint Cup Series. Jimmie Johnson's 3 championships. Mark Martin has finished 2nd in the points 4 times in his career. 400 miles separates these history books being written after today's race, a championship on the line. Well, before the hectic schedule here in the garage at Homestead Miami Speedway, I sat down with both of them, along with their car owner, Rick Hendrick, earlier in Coral Gables, Florida. Here's a look at that and this week's Real Deal.
No one has ever won 4 NASCAR Sprint Cup championships in a row.
Mark Martin is one of NASCAR's most respected, most accomplished drivers, but he's never won the championship.
He could pick up his 9th Sprint Cup championship at Homestead.
First off, congrats to all 3 of you for coming this far along. Jimmie with your 7 wins, Mark with your 5 wins. Those are accomplishments within itself, but add the championship mix to that. What a season for you both.
Definitely. As you point out, I mean, just an awesome year for the company, for us each individually, and hopefully we can finish this deal up 1, 2, 3 in points for Hendrick Motorsports. It's just been an awesome year. We knew once we got in the chase, we'd have our hands full in the championship battle, and sure enough, we have, and it's just been an awesome year for the whole company.
Riding high.
It's really been fun. I can't remember having this much fun. I may have sometime in my lifetime, but this year's been really special for all kinds of reasons, but I think the relationships are what will last a lifetime for me.
Rick, you have to be sitting here. You're king of the mountain because you're going to leave Homestead with a championship and an unprecedented 1, 2, 3 finish. Is this how you dreamed it up?
Can you guarantee that 1, 2, 3? You know, when you start the year, you want to end up that way. I mean, that's your goal. It's just been a phenomenal year. I don't have quite as much pressure on me Sunday as they do, so I've got a lot though.
I think, Jimmie, the most common remark that I get from race fans is that they try to dislike Jimmie Johnson because of your domination, but you're such a nice guy. The role that you play, I think, is actually a really suave tactic on the racetrack because you're super nice to the drivers, to the fans, and then you wax them on the racetrack on Sundays.
Well, I'm glad the waxing part's been there. I mean, no telling how long that'll last. And you know, this great fortune I've had over the last 3 years has been mind-boggling, to say the least. It's been a wild ride. And the other aspect to that, too, that I do get in a certain degree is in sports, people don't like the Yankees. People don't like the Patriots. And I guess in our sport here lately, people don't like the 48 car, and I get that. That's sports. So a great deal of that I understand and get. But I am happy to hear that people respect what I've done and find me to be a good person. You know, that means more to me than anything.
And Mark, you're really known as that humble guy from Batesville, Arkansas that's just thankful to drive a race car. With all your years in the sport, I mean, you've been so close to this championship, but yet you always still are just saying how thankful you are and you just want to win races. Talk about how your approach on your career.
Well, I still remember I am that kid from Arkansas, and I remember all the things that I've seen, and all the things that I've done, and where I came from, and I realized what an incredible privilege it is. The fact that I haven't won a championship just means that my record doesn't stack up to the greats in this sport, and that's okay with me, you know? I didn't beat those guys. I some great things. But, you know, my record doesn't stack against the greats. And that's okay with me.
Jimmie, when I sat down with you in New York 10 weeks ago, you talked about the thought not overcoming your mind of, I can be the next champion. The thought when you get in that race car, how difficult will it be on Sunday?
I just don't want to do it. And as my mind tries to slip, I chase it out. I mean, I have to go out and run 400 miles. And the safest place on that racetrack is running up front. I mean, yeah, it's a good points lead, but there's still a race to run. I want to show up scared. I want to show up worried. I want to show up hungry. And if I do that, I know I'll do my job.
All right, Rick, final words of advice for Jimmie and for Mark going into Homestead. What words of advice do you give them?
You do exactly the same thing you do every week, the same approach that got you here, and go out and run your race and do your best, like Mark said, and you've got to be awful good to get here. You've got to be, you know, a champion to be in this position. And the things that you can control, you will, and the things that you can't, you can. Just do the best, and it's another race.